Saskatoon, and so I have a very urban upbringing as well. My father, though, being from the north and being trained actually here in Ronge in the North Tech program, was a teacher in the north for over 30 years of his life, and a lot of our travel as children were hitching rides to Sandy Bay and then jumping on the plane and going to Pagadawagan, or hitching rides to the pod and jumping on the train and going to Pagadawagan. So a lot of our family travel paths and transportation paths has been through northern travel routes such as northern airports. So the purpose of this research was to work with the Ronge Airport and to study and examine opportunities for business diversification and for potential business expansion areas. And one of the things about the Ronge Airport in Saskatchewan is that it is the third busiest airport in our province. And so this report also, or this project also aimed to build on some of the earlier work of students from Johnson Shreyama School of Public Policy, who did a report titled Capturing the Potential of Northern Saskatchewan's Transportation Hub. And there was also a report on the Ronge Airport. So the methodology, like many of the other student methodologies, consisted of literature review. And so in the scan of the different resources out there that I found, there is a Northern Airports Best Practices report prepared for airports in Alberta, as well as best practices report in Ontario that I looked at quite closely. And then as well, interview questions and informant interviews were conducted with 6 interview airports that agreed to be a part of this research methodology. And so throughout my summer, I sent out a lot of letters. I was hoping to do way more than 6 interviews, but I guess airport managers are extremely busy people, and timing of some of the interviews didn't happen. You'll notice down over there, you're thinking, what is he doing in the south of Saskatchewan? Why is he interviewing over in Regina? And the Regina Airport interview was actually an airport operation manager who worked in the Northern Ontario Airport, and so he responded to my call out of airport letters that I mass sent all over Canada trying to get interviews. So he provided some insight from a Northern Ontario perspective towards this project. So some of the findings, this is from the literature. So northern airports play a very pivotal role in facilitating regional trade. And one of the things I think the Saskatchewan Aviation Council report indicated that uranium is a very big industry in northern Saskatchewan, and in the years to come, there's going to be about a 30% increase in the worker demand in uranium. So airports help to facilitate that trade of product and help to ensure that industry has workers to produce the product. So by 2020, it's projected that 3,500 workers will be needed in the uranium industry alone. They also feed traffic into larger airport systems. So a lot of the way that the transportation post 9/11 has been restructured, most of the smaller airports now feed into international airports. So the Ronge Barber Field would feed traffic into the Saskatoon or Regina airports, and then either national transportation or international transportation is now handled out that way. So some of those regulations are impacted there. They also help attract regional business. So in the Ronge area, one of the main regional businesses that is very important to that airports help facilitate that contact to is actually the angling outfitter business. And from reading some of the Saskatchewan Aviation Council reports, the province and the region on a whole does a really good job of retaining the number of anglers that keep coming back to the region year after year. And from these reports, information I was pulled from there is that increasingly American anglers are now choosing to fly into the Ronge. So in 2008, I think it was 20 to 30% of the anglers were flying, and now that's about 50%. So more anglers from the States are flying to the Ronge. The hospitality is probably very wonderful, and the region on a whole, it's a very beautiful place, lots of lakes, and so airports help to attract that regional business. They support tourism activities. They facilitate public service functions. So in the Ronge here, they have the big fire suppression activities happening out of the Ronge, and that brings about 125 worker jobs. And it also allows for connections and reunions with family and friends. So in my family scenario, in our situation, as children, we were sent quite often by plane to visit our father in the communities that he was teaching in. Okay, so another thing that I researched that I looked at was what are the diversification strategies out there? So what are airports doing to diversify their operations, and what are they doing to try and generate other revenue? And so there's two main areas that airports try to diversify their strategies. One is multi-use development projects. So examples of these types of projects are air cargo distribution centers. Edmonton is a good example of an air cargo distribution center. A lot of the regional materials that are flown in and out of Canada are flown through Edmonton. Also office parks, business centers, retail malls. So these arrangements involve longer-term business planning and longer-term business partners. Airports also try and diversify by initiating other revenue-generating options. So these strategies are subleasing of airport space for commercial development, such as gas stations, convenience stores, pet kennels, pharmacy and health centers, and recreation centers. So airports are doing a number of different things to diversify and to bring more revenue into their airport sites. And at first I was thinking, well, how does this really relate to a northern airport? And some of the readings that I came across indicated that northern smaller airports are more increasingly looking at different ways of adding on business to get people hubbed around the activity of the airport. So that's from the literature. Some best practice insights. So this is information that I pulled from a lot of the interview informant information. So the first best practice insight from some of the northern airport areas was to be active in conversations about future regional resource-based economic planning and forecasting. So in the Ronge area, the uranium is a very big player, and for the airport to be involved in those conversations about what role in the industry that air carriers and the airport is going to continue to play will be critical. I believe that Northlands College should raise a recent $5.5 million announcement. Prime Minister of Canada was here indicating that jobs in the mining industry and training around jobs in the mining industry are going to happen out of the Ronge. So that's promising, and so best practice would be for the airport to work proactively towards being a player as that industry continues to move forward. Collaborative approach in developing and promoting the regional area as a regional marketing plan. So not just promoting the Ronge as a place to come to, but promoting the entire of the Ronge area region. Infrastructure investments into runway technology, which helps make the airport seem to flight carriers as a very reliable and loyal airport. And so part of my internship was a tour of the Ronge Airport, and one of the things that the current airport manager is diligently working on is keeping the runway space up to par and having nice clean runways for air carriers to want to land on, so that's really important. Remaining visible and seen as part of both the local and regional community. And so some of the airports indicated that they have airport shows and tours. Okay. And then the last one, the best practice, and this is one that kind of really hit home for me, is building and developing relationships with Aboriginal communities and organizations. From Sioux Lookout, there's over 19 communities that airport services, and they have friendship reports with their Aboriginal community partners, and so a lot of the Aboriginal organizations and communities prefer to travel through connections to that airport. I know I've got the 1 minute time. So some of my recommendations to the Ronge Barberfield Airport were to continue to explore those commercial development areas adjacent to the airport. As a strength to the Ronge Airport, there's a lot of land available to the airport, so it could be easily and readily used for leasing additional commercial space or further expanding the parking areas for employees who may want to drive to the Ronge and then fly out. Explore partnerships with First Nation organizations, so for potentially jointly developing the commercial space at the airport. There's a lot of potential there. And also to consider ways to obtain future funding to renovate the existing terminal. So one of the things I noticed in the terminal on my tour was that there's limited carrier space, and also the current space and the infrastructure for the terminal is sort of running out. One of the things in this research that was really apparent for me was how connected the regional economy and the population impacts airports. And so I think, in my own personal opinion, that the Ronge is going to be a hub of activity. A lot of business is going to continue to be happening out of the Ronge Airport. And so for me, I would recommend modifications to the existing terminal to accommodate increasing future flight traffic. So